Hello, everybody. How's it going? I know it's weird for me to be live during the day. These nighttime lives have been amazing. So today I am going to be joined by a dear friend of mine. Her name is Layli from the Tahirih Center. So let's see here. Coming on.
Hey,
Hey, how are you?
good.
Oh wait, hold on. I need to make my headphones work. They're not working.
I'm here. How are you?
Hi, Layli. Thanks for joining me today.
No problem. Good to see you.
It's so good to see you all. And let me turn comments off.
I'm trying to dim my
So
window and it's so bright. Let me.
no, it's great. It's like a lot of people on Instagram now are using like ring lights. So it looks like you have one of those like influencer perfect glow ring lights.
It's just a nice day out.
It's a perfect day out. Here's my
Nice.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So I'm excited to talk to you because as for those of you who don't know, I've been a friend of Layli's, but more than that, a supporter of the work she does via the Tahirih Justice Center for the better part of the last decade. Um, and this situation has made me think a lot about your work. And I just thought maybe if you could give us like a brief uh, snapshot of what you do, because it's really powerful and it's important. And I hope people that are watching can maybe become a supporter as well.
So thanks for shedding a light. So, the Tahirih Justice Center provides free legal defense for immigrant women and girls who are fleeing abuses. And these are incredibly courageous women and girls who are standing up against violence, who are changing their lives, the lives of their children, the lives of their communities, their families. And they're just doing an incredible kind of service to humanity, essentially, as they're standing up against violence. But the law is really hard. And unfortunately, our system is stacked against people without money, who don't speak English as their first language, and who don't have access to legal resources. So we provide them with free legal defense. We also help them with social services so that they can find justice in a holistic sense, not just in the courtroom, but also in a broader sense. And that's what we do. We're a relatively large organization comparatively. We have over 100 staff. We're in 5 offices around the United States. But we're really overwhelmed right now. The vulnerabilities of immigrants in particular, who are afraid to call 911 because of some of the collaborations between police and ICE, who don't maybe have health insurance. 90% of Tahirih's clients have lost their jobs. They're in hourly wage
Oh
jobs,
God.
have no money, are forced to shelter with their abusers. It's a very,
And there are a lot,
very
I'm assuming
dangerous time.
there are a lot of domestic workers, right?
A lot of domestic workers. Many of our clients, most of our clients have either lost their jobs, or those that have them are in vulnerable positions. Maybe they're cleaning hospitals, they're caretakers for elderly, and they're very vulnerable from a health perspective. So it's a scary time. It has been for a while for immigrants in
Ugh.
the United States, but
Yeah.
right now, even
So
more.
your work was so important before COVID-19, and now it's and I want to make sure we can gear this conversation to a hopeful place. But the reality is also really intense and grim for a lot of people. And I just think it's important that we talk about it because out of the people watching right now, someone might be in a situation that you are talking about, that you might be able to help with. And I would just love to figure out and see if we can provide any tools or resources for, as an example, someone who may be having to shelter in place with an abuser, right? That was one of the few things that you just mentioned. And it's not something that we think about often.
Right.
But the reality is abuse is going up right now. But are the police calls going up? You know, as
Yes.
you said, so they're just things that I'd love to talk about, and maybe you can provide some insight for. Like maybe we can start there, you know?
Sure. So it's true that domestic violence rates have skyrocketed. Calls
Just in the last month?
Just in the last month. And it's so in the United States, depending on the state, because each state keeps different data, but they're in the double digits in all of the states, ranging from like a 10% increase to 90% increases in different states. By the way, child abuse rates have also gone up shockingly during this time. So these are all like March statistics, which is a whole month that has captured our social isolation. But it's not unique to the United States. The United Nations raised the alarm just a couple of weeks ago, saying, and the word they used was a horrifying surge in domestic violence globally. And so it's a very scary time. You know, I think this whole time will be a time of us having to deal with our demons. Like, we're forced now in this coronavirus environment to face our demons, to face our inequity in healthcare, our inequity in justice, our personal lives, our personal relationships, the problems in them.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to somebody who said it's basically like God has all sent us to our room and told us to think about what we've done. Like we're all, it's just this hard time where
the problem is we're not going to our rooms alone.
Yes.
And we're going to our rooms with our baggage and with our shit, and that shit's coming out and it's hurting other people that are innocent.
Yep. And it's our crap and it's other people's crap, and we're living together. So we're having to kind of deal with all of it. I mean, you know, on a serious note, because I think, and I've seen a lot of Facebook and Instagram, even some stuff you've put out there. There's like a spectrum of what people are experiencing in the world. Everyone's uncomfortable. Everyone's having tests and difficulties. So I don't mean to diminish any pain and any suffering that anyone has had, but there's a spectrum.
Yeah.
And the spectrum ranges from kind of there is a range of pain that's life-threatening, actually, and that's about others inflicting. And this is what's happening.
I'm losing you.
There's articles that were very tragic, where a domestic violence victim was killed by her abuser. Nobody knew where she was for weeks. He had told her family she was sick with COVID. You can't talk to her. Don't, you know, all that. And she was dead. And so I think also this environment provides ammunition for abusers and cover for abusers that are scary. But people who are out there who are scared, call 911. Do not hesitate. They are working, they are on it, and many are aware that domestic violence rates are increasing. Also use the domestic violence hotline. You can text to the numbers, which is Love Is. It's 22522, but it's Love Is. Text someone, they'll text you back. They can help you and, you know, continue to protect.
Oh, I'm losing you. Okay. So with that, Layli, maybe this might be a good segue. So I posted for people to send in some questions specifically related to your work. And we have some really, really powerful questions, if it's okay, because we kind of just dove into the deep end to start. Could I just maybe start with some of these questions?
Absolutely.
With you? So Octavia wrote, what are some of the early warning signs of character traits to look out for in terms of potentially being abusive when you're getting to know someone new?
Right. Emotional volatility is one, somebody who's easily offended, easily upset, easily angry, not emotionally mature. They can't control their emotions very well. That's an important sign. Signs of possessiveness, which a lot of women confuse for he loves me a lot. Like he's trying to protect me. He cares about every detail in my life.
And men are good at manipulating that to make it feel like they are doing it for the right reasons also.
That's right. And unfortunately, we have a lot of kind of Hollywood-fed, romanticized stories.
Damsel in distress.
Who have those qualities with an illusion that can work out okay. But more often than not, those possessive qualities are actually really, really dangerous. I could go on, but I know.
Yeah, maybe you should. Well, I'm curious because, again, once you get into it, it's very hard to get out, right? So maybe we can focus on what are some of the other warning signs, and then also, for as you and I have discussed off of Instagram Live. It can be a very frog in boiling water kind of approach where it starts off cold and then gets warmer, and then before you realizing it, you're boiling alive. So how can one be aware that they are dating or in a relationship with someone who could end up being abusive? Like aside from maybe just being volatile or having, possessive issues and things like that.
So there are these warning signs, and to be honest, you can Google it. Like there are lists of warning signs, and so I won't exhaust that here because there are tons of signs and there's lots that's been written about it. But the biggest thing for all of us is to see the reality in front of us. Like we can even read the list of warning signs
and not see it.
Yeah. And we're still in love, or we don't, we kind of excuse everything. We talk ourselves out of our gut.
The sex is great, whatever it is.
It's so easy. It's so easy to justify. I am a big believer in external feedback in friendships. So we need to be open to friends saying to us, hey, something's off about that guy. Not get defensive. Not throw them away as a friend, not say they just don't understand or they're against me, or let him tell me that they're against me or after him or whatever. Because other people can sometimes help us see what we can't see when we're in the moment. And I do feel like it's one of the biggest tests in life to be open to feedback, to hear criticism, to hear what we can't see about ourselves, because our relationships reflect us. Exactly. So to make no mistake, it's hard to hear, super hard to hear. And we're embarrassed if we haven't made the right choice. But you got to be open to that. 9 times out of 10, other people in your life saw those signs, even if you can't. And if we're open to that, you can read the list, but you still may not see it. But others can maybe let them go, good friends, go on dates with you, people who you think are wise, let them get to know this person. I believe in references. I believe in third-party assessments. It just requires taking your ego and putting it aside because a lot of people aren't open.
And that's really hard for young people. It's not. I mean, this is a very faulty bridge I'm going to construct here. But when I was 19, 20, actually 18 to 20, I was in a very emotionally abusive relationship, and where I was on the receiving end. And the people who told me, like my closest friends, all were like, what are you doing? Yeah. This isn't okay.
People see it.
And instead of listening to them, I pushed them all away. So then I was left on an island by myself because the people that I loved and that loved me were telling me, you're out of your mind. She treats you like shit.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, oh, you guys are just jealous. And then of course she would then come and say and tell me that, oh, they don't like me or this and this and this. And then I had to choose.
Yeah.
Right? You had to choose between your friends or this person. And by that point, there was too much enmeshment for me. Now that was just I was 19, 20. It was nothing compared to what most people are going through. But I relate to not wanting to hear the feedback from the people closest to me in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was so hard, because it was against what I wanted. So if you are watching this right now, and you find yourself in that situation, listen to what Layli says and really try to be open. If you have a dear friend, if you have someone that you've known for your whole life and they do not like the person you're with and they can give you concrete reasons why, there's nothing wrong with just listening to it.
Right.
Doesn't mean you have to go like break it off right now, but just take it in and listen to it and say, oh, I wonder if I can see what that person is seeing.
But can we talk about what it feels like to be that friend? Because this is the other thing.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I've been that friend.
Because friends, and like maybe you've done it once, maybe I was your friend back then, you got real mad at me, cut me off. I'm thinking, okay, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to intervene, stick my nose, even if it's to protect my friend, because I've been burned. I would say don't give up. If you're that ally, if you're that friend, yes, they may get mad at you in the moment. Their abuser may triangulate and get you out of that friendship in the moment, but don't give up. It takes a domestic violence victim an average of 7 times to decide to leave, come back. Decide to leave, actually leave. So see, before, like, there's a longer
7 times.
It takes an average. So it could take longer sometimes, it could take shorter. It takes an average of 7 times leaving to finally leave the relationship.
Wow.
So if you're the friend or you're the religious community supporting someone in a domestic violence situation, you're the high school guidance counselor, whatever therapist you may be, you don't have a right to lose patience with that person until at least 7 times. They've tried to leave at least 7 times.
So 3 times three times you can't become the victim and say, "Oh, they won't listen to me." You just have to keep
I'm
going.
done with that person. I've told them 3 times to leave. They keep going back to him. I'm not going to help them anymore. It's not fair of you to do that. That person needs you as an ally. They need you as a friend. Even if they're going to get mad at you, it may save their life. Years later, they may look back and appreciate what you did for them. But that's the other thing. It's a selfless act to help, because and expect no appreciation. Like, it can't be about you and what you want back from that friendship. It has to be a really selfless act.
And you can't be a savior either. You can't be trying to be the hero. It's got to be a pure act of love. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's real. Thank you. I rarely have thought so much about being that person, because you can imagine how many people give up after 2 or 3, and then if you're the only lifeline for your friend, what happens? You know.
And people end up, as you said, on an island because they have burnt those bridges. They keep telling their friends, "I'm mad at you because you told me something I didn't want to hear." Yeah. And the friends go away. Yeah. But that's not what they need. No. They need you there.
Thank you for that. Foster asked, what a brave question. What are some behaviors or characteristics to be aware of so that you yourself are not perpetuating the cycle of abuse or being abusive yourself?
Right. That's a great question.
Foster, whoever you are, that's a brave question. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would say a lot of people who abuse are repeating cycles. They're repeating cycles in their own families and in their own friends. And there are 2 skills that people need to work on. It's emotional control, like at a very chemical level. Sometimes when one gets used to a lot of chemical endorphins and rage and anger, you literally have to detox from that. And there may be something that requires therapy for yourself. Otherwise, a relationship might not even feel fun unless you've got like some of that going on, because that's what you're used to. Yeah. So self-examine that, do therapy if you need to, but figure out a way to not need spark like that in a relationship, because so many people are very used to that because of history and feel like they need that for a relationship to be enjoyable, rather than peaceful and stable and healthy. So self-examine for yourself. What level of drama, what level of spark, and what kind of level of chemical you are seeking in a relationship. The second thing has to do with communication skills. Are you able to talk through problems? Or do you slam doors, throw things, walk away? It just has to do with communication skills. It's a little bit different from the chemical, I need an exciting relationship piece. Yeah. It's related, but it's a different thing. The other is just communication skills. How do I bring up a tough thing with you? How do I receive your criticism and feedback and put my ego aside and really absorb, hear that, say thank you so much, that took courage. I may not be able to hear it right now, but can I sit on it for a day and can we talk about it tomorrow? You know, there are ways that we can learn how to communicate and resolve problems that maybe we didn't learn in our own backgrounds. And so if you think you have a tendency, thank you for seeing it. Thank you for seeing your past. Thank you for seeing yourself.
Yeah.
But then really intentionally work on both your emotional, chemical makeup in a relationship and the tactical skills you have for communicating and resolving conflict. Make sure you're in a relationship with somebody you can do that with.
And I wonder, Layli, if, to your point about it's generally a repeat of the cycle, like the cycle repeats itself. I would wonder if you're somebody watching who comes from a history where maybe if you're a guy and your dad was abusive towards your mom, or if you're a woman and your father was abusive towards your mom, that maybe you should pay extra close attention.
Assume you're going to have to unwire yourself. Assume it. So
interesting. Thank you for asking that question, man. That was Foster. That was amazing. Shelby. This is I'm sure, Layli, you've seen a lot of your clients come to you with this, but Shelby says, I've been in many abusive relationships. How do I get out of my head and stop relating anyone I talk to my exes? So I feel like what she's asking is she's obviously continuing the cycle of abusive relationships because she said she's been in many.
Right.
And anyone she talks to maybe reminds her of her exes, or because something is leading her into these abusive relationships. So I'm wondering if, and maybe that's too hard of a question because we don't really know what she means by relating.
You know what though? It may just be on the flip side of what we already talked about. Because if one has a tendency or has a history that makes them vulnerable to being an abuser, the same thing is true for somebody who has a history or a tendency to be abused. They may be seeking a chemical level or an emotional level of excitement that would then, maybe they want to be protected. Maybe they love a guy that asks every detail because to them that means love, because that's what I've learned, or whatever.
Where were you? Who were you with? Why were you out so late? Why didn't you tell me about it? Why are you talking to like those types of questions?
Right, right. And so if you're attracted to that, self-examine why. I am a big believer in like tools that can take us out of our emotional subjective moment and help us think more objectively. And one of the best ways to do that is to journal and keep lists. So maybe think about she should think about her exes and write down all of the character traits that she saw that she wishes she could have seen more clearly that were warning signs for abuse. And then the next guy you meet, literally pull out that list and say, is this similar? Is it not? And that way, she mentioned, I think about my ex or I relate to my ex. That might be bad, but it might be good.
Yeah.
A list would allow her to be objective about, yeah, he is like my ex in this way. That is a red flag. It's okay that I have memory and I can learn from my experiences. Or here's a quality he has, my ex didn't have this. So I shouldn't throw away the baby with the bathwater. Maybe he's okay. But
if we're not learning from our experiences, then our experiences are in vain.
That's right.
Because they're just happening and there's no growth. We become like passive observers of it versus actually getting a chance to learn from these, which again is a very hard thing to do. Putting yourself in those situations and imagining having the strength to come out after seeing a red flag is a very hard thing to do. So if you're somebody who's in that situation, just know that you're not alone. And it is a Herculean effort it takes to be willing to detach yourself from somebody who could be abusing you because there's so much enmeshment there. Speaking of the friend, Ashley wants to know, how do you tell someone they're in an abusive relationship without making them mad if they're sensitive?
You might not be able to. And that's okay. It's worth doing. And, there are like ways, that person best. There might be ways to say very gently, I love you. I'm trying to say, I know I got to say something to you that might be really hard for you to hear. Are you willing to hear it? Sometimes asking permission to say something tough to somebody really helps that person prepare. A lot of people react really badly when they've been caught off guard. They thought you were going out to dinner and you do this like intervention that they weren't ready for. Yeah. It helps sometimes to ask permission. I have something really tough I'm nervous about telling you about. Is it okay if we talk about this? And they might say, I'm really not ready today. I had a horrible day at work. Can we do this tomorrow? They might, and then you can position.
And they might push it off for 2 or 3 times too. You know, they might not.
Keep trying. Yeah. Keep trying. So you can go soft and you can try.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they might not be ready to hear it. It doesn't mean they don't need to hear it.
I also have found that those types of conversations, not of course related necessarily to abuse, always start really well when you remind the person how much you care about them.
Yeah.
So like starting with, I love you, and all the things you love about the person can also help soften that blow, I think. Exactly. Because if you can kind of fill them up while you kind of unfortunately have to suck the wind out of them, it might be able to help. Here's another.
That's powerful, Justin, because remember, anytime somebody criticizes someone you're in a relationship with, it criticizes you because you've chosen that person. And that's why it's so loaded, because it will feel like a judgment against you, even if you're really meaning to talk about another person because you're in that relationship.
And you know what I've noticed lately, and I've noticed for me, that the times in my life I've gotten the most defensive, because feedback is such a crucial part of the way that I operate now. That I don't know where I would be if I didn't have people telling me, I disagree with you here. I look for it, right? It's how I'm able to move in the world the way that I do. But I know for a fact that the times that I've been the most defensive and angry about feedback are the times when it's been the most true.
Right.
And I would also say, if you're somebody who has, because again, like if you were to tell me like, Justin, your face is green, I'd be like, okay, no, it's not. Right. But because I know that it's not true.
You're not threatened by that.
You're seeing, maybe, you know what? No, Layli, your sunglasses have a green tint, right? It's like there's a viewpoint that the other person can have that I can take or not. But if you were to tell me something true about myself and also tell me and offer me a perspective on it, I might, a few years ago especially, have been like, and not talk to you for a little while. Like that's just what we do because we're having the mirror reflected to ourselves. So if you have a friend giving you advice, and I'm saying this to whoever's watching this or whoever's going to watch this live for the next 24 hours, and they tell you something you don't want to hear and you find yourself getting angry, I would use that as a reason to really look at what they're saying. Right. Because that means that the feedback is striking an honest chord, and you might know it to be true even if you're denying it. And that's that's not just about abuse. That's about anything in life. Truthfully, that's one of the secrets. If like somebody was going to ask me the secret to my success, that's one of it. That's one of them.
Feedback, openness.
Being willing to take feedback and be open.
Do you know what might help for people who feel really sensitive to criticism? Because also accepting criticism is a muscle. Mm-hmm. It is. It's a lift. It's a heavy lift. And if you're not used to that, if you surround yourself with friends who only affirm you, if you have an approach around no negative energy ever, and I'm not going to be around other people who make me uncomfortable, odds are good you may not have developed that muscle. Mm-hmm. Right? So but it may take like a gradual toe dip in order to flex that muscle.
It's a cold plunge. You know what? It's like a cold plunge. It's all the stuff we've been talking about.
Plunge.
It's like a cold shower. You don't want to do it, but after you do it and you feel like, oh wait, I can do that again. And then you do,
Right. But I think for people who don't have that muscle, there's an analogy that really helped me, which is that it's like let's say you're a really complex house and you have parts of you that are kind of really public and available to everybody. You have parts of you that are more private. Whenever we receive criticism or feedback, we should have our front door completely wide open. And the minute it appears at our doorstep, say, welcome, come in. Like that should be our first response to criticism and feedback. But you know what? Hold it in the foyer. Like keep it kind of by the front door until you can assess, is this really true? Have I heard this a few times? Because sometimes it's not fair and it's not true, and that's also
okay. It's somebody else's stuff.
but try it on. Like welcome it, bring it in. Maybe then you decide to bring it into the living room and sit down and have a conversation with it. Or you say, you know what, I'm glad you stopped by. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow. You're not mad at the criticism. You're not mad at the feedback, but you didn't have to bring it into the bedroom. You didn't have to bring it into the living room. Like, we have a choice. Feedback is not, I have to be blown over by it 100% or I have to reject it 100%. We can accept it in stages and decide what feels right, true for us. Talk to a friend. I received this criticism. Have you seen that quality in me? Maybe it's something I need to hear. Maybe it's not. But we got to be open. Keep the door open.
We do. Yeah. It makes me think of the quote there's a Baha'i quote from Baha'u'llah, and obviously Layli and I are both Baha'is. That's how we know each other. But Baha'u'llah says that not everything that a man thinketh can be disclosed. Not everything that is disclosed can be considered timely, and not every timely utterance can be suited for the one who hears it. And the other, so to me, that leaves, like, if you are somebody giving advice or giving feedback, just also be mindful of where that person is at the time, kind of what Layli said. And always start it with love. Because the only reason to give feedback is love. If you have any other motive, then it's never going to be accepted. Like, giving feedback when, like, out of vengeance or anger, that's not feedback. That's just fault finding and making somebody feel terrible about themselves. But the reason you will take the time to tell somebody that maybe they should consider the person that they're dating or reconsider the person there is because you love somebody, right? You do it out of love. So I'm going to jump down to another question here. Wow. Camilla, I'm about to get married and I don't want to replicate the toxic marriage my parents had. Any tips?
So again, a great self-reflective and courageous question. I think it's really similar to some of the themes that we've talked about, because it's about how can I see stuff that I'm worried I'm not wired because of my experience, because of my history, to see easily. I'm not wired to see it. So help me see it. How do I see it? You know, it might sound kind of boring to say, but therapy is really useful for that.
I was going to say
therapy can really help. Yeah. Also, having accountability partners in our lives. These are friends who tell us stuff we don't want to hear, but we're inviting that and saying to people, hey, I don't want to repeat this. I'm worried I can't see myself. Can you give me a reality check on this? What do you think about him? Do you think he's loving and patient and selfless and kind? Do you think he's emotional and volatile and selfish and violent? People can help us. People can really help us see that. So I would encourage her to maybe do some premarital counseling with her fiance in order to unpack maybe both of their family histories.
And talking about that with her fiance as well.
Yeah.
I think is also
very
important. Yeah. Layli, I want to pivot real quick and talk about specific now to your work at the Tahirih Justice Center. You know, obviously, women and girls fleeing domestic violence is a part of what you do. Women and girls seeking asylum, fleeing forced marriages. Can we just pivot a little bit to what's happening for undocumented people in our country and what's happening at the borders and what somebody watching this can actually do? Because I know I felt, and I've reached out to you about it, I felt overwhelmed. Like, it's hard for me to just imagine right now where we are being one of the children locked in the detention centers right now. Right. It's a hard thing for my heart to even go there. And I know for my wife, it's even harder as a mother. So what are some things that somebody watching this can do? Because we already have high levels of anxiety because of what's happening. So to take that on top of it can feel overwhelming. What are small things? Is there a little thing that we can do? Is it as simple as like sending the Tahirih Justice Center $1 every time? You know, I think but what can we do in general? Because it's just an overwhelming thing.
So what's happening at the border, children in detention facilities and others who are suffering, it's not easily accessible to the person. Helping your friend that's different. That's in your world, that's in your life. But people at the border, people in detention, it's not. And so it is actually important to support organizations like the Tahirih Justice Center, who are on the front lines of legal defense of people who are most vulnerable, undocumented refugees, human trafficking victims, people who are seeking protection, because those are spheres where only lawyers can go. Those are spheres where only social workers can go. And so if we care about those issues, it really is those frontline responders. It's kind of like saying, I care a lot about that burning building that I see over across the street. So tell me how I can go in there and help. Yeah. The answer is like, you're not a professional. You actually really can't go in there. And to try would only damage you, and it might even hurt the people you're trying to help. Help support the professional firefighters, help support the lawyers on the front line, help support the social workers. And that is the hard reality. We need help with the laws and policies and advocacy. Tahirih does legislative advocacy as well. We have to change the underlying policies and systems. And we need frontline social workers and lawyers who are able to help as many people as possible. Tahirih is litigating around 2,000 cases at a time, like right now.
And real quick, just if you're watching this and you're curious how this works, the Tahirih Justice Center basically partners with regular attorneys at big firms who then take on a pro bono case for somebody that you are representing, right? So you're working with lawyers at other big firms who are basically doing this out of the goodness of their heart to help a young woman who is maybe seeking asylum and fleeing an abusive relationship where her husband is threatening to kill her, right? So you're kind of basically taking this young woman who comes to you and partnering them up with this lawyer and guiding the process. Is that kind of how it works?
That is true on a small percentage of our cases.
Okay, so what's the larger,
Yeah, totally ourselves as lawyers. And we partner also, ones that take a lot of resources. We'll partner with large corporate attorneys at law firms so that we can leverage their goodwill, leverage their resources, and bring them to people who need them most.
So the reason why you can only help 1 out of every 10 girls is because you don't have enough lawyers, because you don't and so you essentially need more lawyers to help more young women and girls, because if only 1 out of 10, and tell me if the stats are right, well, you can only help 1 out of every 10 calls. You can only take on 1 out of every 10. And if you don't have a lawyer, your chances are below 30%, below 40% of
16% chance of winning without
16%. But with the Tahirih Justice Center, you are a 99% chance. So really what this comes down to is, with your help, you almost 100% of the time can help save this individual. But you have to turn down 9 of 10 people that call you.
Just because we don't have capacity. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So what's the lowest hanging fruit? Like, what's somebody that's watching this can do that feels already overwhelmed in their house, and they just hate the fact that these children are sitting on at the borders and they are far away from their parents? What is that? What can we?
Yeah, go to our website. There are a ton of ways to get involved. There are a ton of ways to support. We have ideas for calling your congressperson at different moments about different pieces of legislation. There are ways to give and donate that are there. So I really encourage people to visit our website. Also, we're having an event on Friday that you, Justin, are a part of. Friday evening. Yay! People can tune in. They can see you. They can see other people as well, Penn Badgley and Rainn Wilson and Oscar Nunez and Lin-Manuel Miranda, a whole bunch of other people. And we're going to be raising money for the legal protection of courageous immigrant survivors of violence. So you can help this Friday.
This is really important. So no matter how overwhelmed you may feel, this virus isn't affecting everybody in the same way. And I think that's an important thing to admit. It's disproportionately affecting immigrants and communities of color and lower income communities. And I think that it's really important to partner with an organization like the Tahirih Justice Center. If you're feeling like in your heart you want to do more than maybe just provide to give meals or masks, and if you feel like you need to do something, Layli and the Tahirih Justice Center are really doing powerful, important work, and they're making a big difference. So follow them and follow Layli. And Layli, are you doing videos and updating people on things like on the Tahirih website, or how can people kind of keep up and follow with what you guys are doing?
There again, if they sign up on our website, there are lots of
Okay.
updates that come out, and people can get updated regularly. So please
Awesome.
do stay in touch. I think, you know, there is a wonderful thing happening right now, which is that a lot of people are feeling empathy, compassion, and care for others. Even as we realize that we're suffering in our own circumstances, we know that others are suffering even more. There are so many good hearts. I know your followers are incredible people. And that's the good news, I think, in all of this, is there are opportunities to help, and we can all engage and bring love to the world and help promote justice.
There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and Layli, you and your team are the light. And we're so grateful for you and all your work. It's not easy. So thanks for coming up for air and giving us a glimpse.
Thank you. Thanks for your help.